Well, this is a follow-up to the previous joke video where some people, I've got friends who I discuss these with and have a look at the videos to see what they're like and pass comment. And there was two things that people said. One was that it's fair enough that you should try and let humour or adverse humour affect you as little as possible, and I stand by that, and everybody thought that was a good idea. But if you are going to deliberately use adverse humour, you should be aware that you might be being a dick. And I've tried a couple of times to put this into words here, and I struggle purely because I don't really like telling people how to go on. I don't really think I'm going to sit here and say, this humour is not good, and somebody who's just cracked a black joke in the pub last night goes, I never thought. I just don't think it's going to fucking happen. So it is true. I don't think it's ever a bad advice to take a step outside yourself and have a little look in and see if you would think you were being a dick if you were going on like how you're going on. That might sound a bit elementary, but I have known a few people of blistering hypocrisy. I still think it's best just to, if you have taken the high moral stance of I don't like X, Y, and Z being joked about because I believe it's insensitive and immoral or in whatever, that is the way to go. I think people that's how people are going to change themselves. Now, telling other people what jokes not to crack, which is more or less what I was trying not to do in the last video, and suddenly here I am trying to do it without doing it, is a bit weird to me. So there is a point where people will consider somebody an arsehole if they crack a certain type of joke. And there are people who will push the boundaries just for a laugh. And sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it wrong, and quite often they don't know which one they're getting. Sometimes they think they're doing it right, and then maybe it's not as funny as they think they are. I would say if you're cracking a joke for your own benefit more than the benefit of those in the room, then that's a red flag there. I mean, if I crack a joke, it is generally because I want people to laugh, which obviously is why everybody cracks a joke. But if you're standing there cracking a joke and it's purely so you look risky or you look clever or you look like you don't care what people think, which that is the big red flag, then I think you might have to go and look in the mirror for a bit. And I have known people like that, not with jokes, but the delighted in saying things that were rude, and just say, well, I don't care, and like, well, you're being a cunt then. And it's going to come to the point where people you may want to associate with won't associate with you. I knew one fella. I've got problems with the word moron, less so these days, but back when I was still a little bit more sensitive than I am now, I really hated the word because it's not completely dissimilar to my name, and so of course, kids being kids, when I was at school, my name got substituted for moron, and it brought very painful memories back. And I was at a job one day and I made a mistake or something, and somebody said moron, and I sort of like did a second take, and then I just said, look, I really hate that word, don't use it. And of course, he used that word for months, and this is fine. This is lad humor. It didn't exactly, you know, kill us or anything. But whereas I benefited from becoming less sensitive to that, which was the topic of the last video, he might have benefited more if he didn't do things that made me think he was a dick. I might have, you know, I might have worked with him a bit more, and just, you know. And it wasn't the first time he'd done something like that. You can't be too cocksure of yourself. But again, these are the things. If you've got the self-awareness to change something, I think you've already done it. And I don't really know how to break that down anymore. I mean, there are other reasons people crack jokes. I knew one person who would try and make humour of somebody else's shortcomings, my shortcomings, in case you're wondering, for no other reason than she wanted people to think of my shortcomings more than they thought of her shortcomings. And it was even pointed out to me one day that you know, somebody said, don't you mind her doing that? And I just said, I don't care. I don't care what she thinks of us. And she says, yeah, but she's really putting you down. I says, but yeah, but you know us. Do you think less of me, or do you think less of her when she says it? And he says, well, less of her, obviously. I says, well, there you go. I mean, like, I don't care. Let her dig her own grave. And this isn't advice from my perspective to say that's how you deal with that person, because that was the last video. It's advice if you're that person who's trying to cast a poor light on somebody else. Be aware it's probably you. It's probably you that's going to get the shit end of the stick on that deal. And I really have got a fucking clue who I'm talking to here. Yeah. So I think this is going to be a shorter video than I thought it would be, because I don't want to waffle on. There was one more thing that somebody brought up. I made the example of somebody who wasn't old enough to be affected, or close enough to an event to be affected by it, namely the Twin Towers, as in, I was old enough to process it and see it, and acknowledge that a lot of people died, some of them quite badly. If that hadn't happened within the span of my adult memory, I might have been more inclined to laugh at a joke about it. And then somebody said, well, what about the Holocaust? And I felt that may be the exception, because obviously it's getting to the point, like, nearly it's nearly 70 years now when it happened. So you might think it'd be better timing to crack a joke about the Holocaust, and it's really not, because a friend of mine did say that it's just never right to crack a joke about that. And I did start talking about this in the last video, and I realised I was just such a big subject. Who would it affect? Who wouldn't it affect? Why would you forgive somebody for telling that joke? And I really couldn't come to any conclusions other than I never crack Holocaust jokes, and I wouldn't look kindly on somebody who did, with the provision that I probably wouldn't make a fuss about it, obviously, but yeah, I don't really want to pretend I've got an answer for that one. I suppose it's a good idea to mention that this is like, you know, pub humor, in the office humor, what have you. This isn't me trying to tell a stand-up comic how to go on, and that's just a hiding to note. You know, like if you're a stand-up comic and when you're watching this, my first question is why? What the fuck are you listening to me? If you're making money out of your jokes, you know what you're doing. And if you go and watch a stand-up comic, quite frankly, you know what you're getting yourself in for. If you think you're going to be offended, just don't go in. I don't know why anybody would want to put themselves through a ringer. We'll get back into the point where people just like to be offended for some sort of like moral high. I don't know. They get off on it or something. I don't know. It's never really been my bag. So yeah, I don't. I can quite understand why people don't want to hear nothing funny coming out of the Holocaust. That's all I can say. And yeah. Well, I don't want to keep this going until the 15-minute mark purely for the sake of it, so I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to go and try and enjoy a really wet Sunday. No doubt the cat wants in. If I'd actually managed to do this in the first go, you could have heard her yowling in the background to be out, and now she's out. She's probably under a bush wanting back in. Because animals are fickle. I'll try and get another couple of videos up this week because I'm not at work. I'm quite enjoying just talking to a camera at the minute. I don't know. I hope everybody else is enjoying it. I do apologise slightly for the last video. It wasn't exactly my best work, even though I've only made 3 of the bastards. But as you can probably tell, I'm very new at this, and I'm still just throwing shit at the wall and to see what something sticks. I almost considered changing the channel's name to the shit on the wall, but I don't think YouTube would like that. Anyway, have a good one, and you know, try not to get punched telling jokes.